Hi, everyone. So I think I know almost all the boxes around the room, but just in case, Melissa Wetzel here from Florida Organ Transplant Association. Thanks so much for being a part of this. Of course, we have John and James, two of our fearless leaders. Gentlemen, if you want to say hello again.
Hello.
Oh, hello. I'm a two-time kidney recipient also, so
Good.
uh, and the executive director of the Florida Organ Transplant Association, and been doing this for quite a long time.
Yep. John is very much the heart of who we are and what we're about. Florida Organ Transplant Association has been around since 2002. We are primarily a services organization. We provide resources and emergency grant support to both transplant patients pre and post, to families, and to organ donor families and living donors. We work with local hospitals here in South Florida to be able to provide one-time emergency grant support. We offer monthly virtual support groups. We do patient geared events. So I wanted to share a couple of things that we have coming up. So every month we offer a monthly virtual support group. I see some of these faces are familiar for these events. Our next one is on Thursday, March 27th at 7 p.m. We also have a patient geared event for some of our kiddos. It's a Build-A-Bear event that we work alongside a dear volunteer and friend, Laura Kowalczyk, to put together an event where we provide those wonderful Build-A-Bear friends to transplant patients pre and post, as well as to their siblings. It's a beautiful day. It's Sunday, April 6th. And then, of course, we have our family-friendly run walk event on Saturday, April 26th at Zoo Miami. You're going to see some flyers and things on the chat as we kind of get going here. I wanted to call the attention over to our dear friend Jerry. Jerry is a representative from Sanofi and has made this evening possible. Jerry, do you want to say hi to the team?
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. My name is Jerry Deach, and I work for Sanofi. You can say Sanofi if you like. It doesn't matter. We're a French company. I think the French say Sanofi. So, Melissa, yeah.
It's
Anyway,
like tomato, tomato, right? To match my
right,
red.
right.
Yes, yeah.
But I am a representative for the company, representing a product that a lot of you may have received and didn't even know it. The drug is called thymoglobulin, and it is actually given on the day of surgery as an IV. And what it does is it helps to prevent rejection of that organ that you just received. And it's given for a few days as an IV, 6 hours at a time, and then they transition you obviously to your oral medications that you will stay on for the life of your new organ. So that's what I do, and I cover Florida and Georgia, Alabama, the North and South Carolina, and Tennessee. I work with all of those transplant hospitals in the states, and it's been such a pleasure to work with Melissa and John. And it's just such a wonderful. I think we're very lucky today to have this presentation from Bobby and Steve. I think you'll really enjoy it. And I just want to hand it to all of you that are donors and those of you that are recipients. God bless you. Keep it up. Take care.
Jerry, thank you so much. It feels so good to be able to count on you and everything that you do and bring to the table for the transplant community. It is a miracle, this gift of life, and there are a lot of hands in the pot, and we're glad that you're part of this community for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So just a couple of quick housekeeping. If you have not muted yourself, if you could take a moment and just put yourself on mute. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers this evening, Bobby and Steve, and then get those questions together because we're going to open up a Q&A at the end of their presentation. So if we are ready, I'm going to start with Miss Bobby. Bobby donated a kidney because she knew it was likely she could live life as she knew it with just one kidney, while at the same time possibly saving a life. Bobby says since her kidney donation in September of 2019, her day-to-day life hasn't changed much. A dedicated runner, Bobby's day starts with a 3-mile run and a 2-mile hike with her dogs, all before she heads to work at her full-time job managing a state-run victim services unit. When she's not working, Bobby and her husband enjoy traveling and spending time with her friends and family. As a kidney transplant connector, Bobby hopes that by sharing her experience, people will see that there is nothing extraordinary about those who choose to donate. It was one of the most rewarding decisions I have ever made, she says. I donated a kidney, but gained an extended family. I would do it again if I could. Bobby, that's awesome. And then to Steve. Steve received his first kidney transplant more than 20 years ago. When his veins began to collapse after dialysis in 1998, his brother stepped in with a gift of life in 1999. The process of finding a donor the second time took much longer and required him to go back on dialysis, but Steve finally had his second transplant in 2023. Today, Steve is retired and finds himself busier than when he was working. Staying active is what I do, he said. It is such a pleasure to have you both with us. I'm going to let you guys take it away.
All right, well, I guess I'll start. Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Johnson. I'm a two-time kidney transplant recipient. I live in Denver, Colorado. Been married to my wife for 31 years. We've been together 37.
And my name is Bobby, and as Melissa said, I'm a kidney donor. Steve and I are thrilled to be here tonight as part of the Kidney Transplant Connectors program sponsored by Sanofi or Sanofi, depending on how you'd like to pronounce it. I'd like to thank FODA for having us here this evening. While we're being compensated for this discussion, our primary motivation has always been to help others. Today, we hope to help you navigate this journey by sharing insight into what our journeys looked like.
I want to remind everyone that we're here as peers, not healthcare providers. The experiences we're sharing today are our own, and your others' experiences may be a lot different. If you have any medical questions, please make note of them so you can share them with your healthcare team. Today's outline of today's talk is going to be, we'll talk about living with kidney disease and the process of looking for a donor, I'm sorry.
We'll also discuss the steps you may need to take to prepare for a transplant and share our transplant and donation experiences. As a reminder, always speak to your doctor or transplant center about their particular requirements to prepare for a transplant. Steve?
Being on the transplant wait list can be a deeply challenging experience. Nationally, the average time someone is on the wait list for a deceased donor kidney is anywhere from 3 to 5 years, but it can be up to 10 years, depending on where you are in the country. While there are uplifting moments fueled by hope and the bonds we create with others, stress and physical challenges can become overwhelming at times. It's important to embrace everything. Remember that all feelings are valid and know you're not alone in this journey. Your support network can help you maintain a positive attitude. That mindset includes your friends and family, your healthcare team, support groups, mentors from advocacy groups, online support resources, and hopefully even us. My journey with a kidney transplant started back in 1996 at the age of 44. I was diagnosed with lupus and that attacked my kidneys. I received a kidney transplant in 1999, but after more than 20 years, that kidney eventually started to just wear out. I spent another 3 years on dialysis before I received my second kidney on September 29th, 2023. When I first got sick back in 96, it was winter. And so for 2 different times, doctors I had seen, they both said I had the flu. So I wasn't concerned or surprised. But after 2 months, it wasn't getting any better. My sister-in-law, who's now retired, was an ER nurse at a university hospital here. And she said we needed to see a nephrologist. Well, we had to wait 2 weeks for that nephrologist to come up. His appointment was that backed up. I wasn't concerned because I knew that eventually he was going to say the same thing, that I had the flu. Well, we finally got there to see the nephrologist. They ran some tests on site, and before I knew it, the doctor returned and told me I was in full renal failure, and he didn't know if I was going to make it. They started me on dialysis, and then we made an incredible discovery. I was born with only one kidney. The time I spent on dialysis was an emotional and physical roller coaster, particularly because I had 2 separate experiences. My first time lasted 18 months. My second time lasted 3 years. Both times took a toll on me physically, but it was easier to manage when I was younger. I wanted to find a donor so I could get out of that chair. I was spending 12 hours getting dialysis each week. That was 4 hours a day for 3 different days. The second time was even harder from a physical sense, and I spent so long on dialysis that I could actually feel my muscles atrophy. I'm still trying to regain strength, and I'm doing that slowly but surely because I've got the time to do it. But I'm also a very positive person, and I'm stubborn about it also. Bobby can tell you that. I always try to stay positive about outcomes, and when I'm down, my wife is right there to pull me back up again. Bobby?
Steve also didn't tell you is his wife makes him regain his strength by dragging him around the neighborhood, but that's just our little secret. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
the decision to donate. Now let's look at some of the ways donors are matched with recipients. There are three main types of living kidney donation options for donors. The first is called a direct donation, when the living donor chooses the person they want to give their kidney to. This scenario typically involves relatives or close friends, and I say typically because you'll see in my instance, it was neither of those things. The second type is called a non-directed donation. This is when a living donor does not name a specific person who should receive his or her kidney. The kidney can be given to anyone in need that is compatible. The final type of living donation is called a paired kidney exchange. In this case, you're not compatible with the person you initially hoped to donate your kidney to, but you are compatible with someone else on the wait list. The transplant center will facilitate the exchange of donors so that each patient receives a kidney from a donor who is compatible with them. And one of our other Kidney Transplant Connector members, I think, was part of a paired exchange that ended up with a 14-person exchange. So they can really do chain donations oftentimes with that, which is remarkable. So my donation was a direct donation. However, I did not know my recipient at that point in time. And here's how I made my decision to donate. My decision to donate was inspired by a local news story about a very famous New England quarterback. Let's say his name is Dom Shady for legal purposes. And he was looking to get a donor for a youth mentor who was an end-stage renal failure. And I had never really thought about kidney donation or becoming a donor before that. We didn't have anyone in my family with kidney disease. We were blessed, and I knew nothing about it. By the end of the news story, everything just made sense to me. I thought, if I can live with one kidney, why wouldn't I? Why shouldn't I donate? That was the inspiration that sent me to register with the National Register website. I didn't have a recipient in mind. I just wanted to donate to someone in need. I certainly had questions such as how this would affect my longevity, my lifestyle. I'm a pretty active person, and my family, not to mention questions about recovery. I also didn't know how this decision would impact my ability to donate if one of my family members ever needed a kidney, especially my son, who was 16 at the time. But I had a lengthy conversation with my husband, and ultimately, I'm not the same blood type as my son. If he ever needed a kidney from me, it would have to be through a paired exchange. My husband agreed in the event that that would happen, that he would step up and be the donor. I'm a pretty direct person, so when I made the decision, I told my family, listen, I saw this news piece. I think this is right for me. If I'm healthy enough to donate, I'm going to do it. I hope everybody's on board with me. And to be honest with you, they were not as enthusiastic as I was. My son was frustrated. He didn't understand why I would put myself in harm's way for a stranger. My husband actually even said that he hoped that they would find something to rule me out, not realizing, I don't think, what he was saying. But they could also see how important this was to me, and I had their support, even if their understanding took a little longer. I wanted to further my understanding of the process, but wasn't sure where to start. So at first, like everybody else who looks up things, I started Googling everything I could and relying on materials from my local transplant center. Also, I was lucky enough to meet with a former coworker who donated to her brother. It was a great conversation. We can learn a lot from the experience of others, and it reaffirmed how I felt about my choice to donate. The next step was the screening. Steve?
Okay, so how do you ask someone for a kidney? While it may be challenging to start the conversation, according to the United Network for Organ Sharing, UNOS, 1 in 4 people say that they'd be willing to donate an organ if asked. And 90 to 95% of people who have already donated organs say that they would make the same decision again. Like Bobby, she said it, and I believe her. The first thing to keep in mind when you start looking for a donor is that you're not alone. You already have a support network, and they may be bigger than you realize. Towards the end of my first time on dialysis in the late 90s, my doctors determined my veins were collapsing and that there was nothing else that I could do as far as dialysis, and that needed to get put on the wait list. But thankfully, I wasn't there for long. I had already been discussing finding a match with my healthcare team. My nephrologist stressed the importance of finding a living donor for several reasons. The technicians at my dialysis center offered me strong support through that initial 18 months of dialysis, and my wife, Kathy, was and has always been the strongest support person in my crew. In Denver, I connected with others who'd been on the waiting list and then received a transplant. I leaned on them for support and education regularly. It was refreshing to know there were people just like me who I could share my anxieties and concerns about needing a new kidney transplant. Well, at first, the first one. I found my first donor within my family. One day, my brother was dropping me off. He was a Denver fireman for an appointment at the hospital. Earlier that morning, I just had another graft surgery, and the bandage fell off, and he saw it, and he was shocked. Instead of dropping me off at the door, he parked. He said, "I'm coming in to get tested." Now, I tried my best to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't have it. I was terrified for my brother after he offered to donate one of his kidneys, but he was certain he wanted to help me and knew how to alleviate some of my concerns. That allowed us to have a deeper conversation about it. Finding a kidney the second time around was far more challenging for several reasons. The medical community was still reeling from COVID-19 in 2020, making everything slower and more complicated. I also had trouble finding a match, though I had no shortage of volunteers. Because of my first transplant and my work in the community in Denver, I had several potential donors, even outside of Denver, offered to get tested. Sadly, they were all disqualified for various reasons, but each one of them was disqualified. We found out the reasons they were disqualified. They had other health issues they weren't even aware of. I was 70 years old at the time, too, and knew that other cases would likely go ahead of me being on that transplant list. I accepted that. And to be honest, there was a time when I thought about being a 70-year-old man on permanent dialysis would be the best I could hope for. Then my doctors asked me if I'd be willing to accept one of those, what we referred to as underutilized kidneys from a deceased donor. I agreed. And the first kidney we looked at as we were preparing for surgery, actually, they found a little small cyst on it. And fortunately, my surgeon said that she wasn't willing to put that in there until she had a chance to test it. And I thank God for that. I thought I was going back to the wait list, but 2 days later, they found another deceased hepatitis C kidney. And but hepatitis is curable with medication. So after the transplant, so we move forward. Still, there are risks to every procedure, and donors should discuss those with your HCP. Bobby?
So my screening process in preparation for transplant. Potential donors undergo medical screening tests. Each transplant center may have a different screening criteria. I'm going to talk a little bit about what mine looked like. First, I had a urinalysis and blood work preliminarily, which were done at my local hospital. I received a heartfelt letter from my recipient's grown daughter asking if I'd consider further testing. It was incredibly moving, and I felt great about my decision. Next, I had routine exams, mammograms, pap smears, colonoscopies, all the routine yearly exams in addition to lab work. I also had a scan to make sure I had 2 kidneys. As Steve told you, he had lupus and he only had 1 kidney, so I couldn't donate a kidney if I only had 1. So we had to make sure I had 2. All of that was done at my pace. I'd set up a local appointment at the hospital that's 3 miles down the road from my house, and the facility would send the bill to the appropriate party because Medicare or the kidney patient's private insurance generally covers a donor's medical costs. I work full time, so I had to fit the exams in gradually, but I did it around my schedule. Oftentimes, if it was, a quick urine catch or blood work, I would run down on my lunch break and take care of it right then. The second phase involved traveling to the transplant center, which was several states away. I had to meet with the social worker for financial purposes to ensure my family was okay and that we wouldn't be in harm's way if I ended up missing extended time from work. Then I had to have a nuclear filtration test to test the rate of my kidney filter, and then the final blood work to confirm that I was a good enough match for my recipient. I also had to meet with the nephrologist, a urologist, and the chief psychiatrist because technically, to this point in time, I still had not, I hadn't met my recipient. We had spoken on the phone, but we had never met. And that was kind of an intimidating appointment, in all honesty, to meet with the chief of psychiatry. But during my appointments, before this point and after, the healthcare providers did a great job of explaining how there are potential risks to all surgical procedures. These complications can be potentially significant with kidney transplants, including medical and financial risks. My team explained that serious complications could occur during or immediately after the transplant surgery, but most living donors who follow a healthy lifestyle after surgery can remain just as healthy after donation as non-donors. Depending on some factors such as race, BMI, and relationship to the recipient, there may be a slightly higher risk of developing end-stage renal disease compared to non-donors. For most donors, however, the remaining kidney works fine for the remainder of their life. Medicare or the kidney patient's private insurance will cover the donor's medical costs. However, most insurance companies do not cover one of the biggest concerns of both donors and their recipients, time off from work. In addition to time off from work, there may be other financial obligations that need to be considered, such as childcare, meals, parking and gas, hotel costs during screening, testing, surgery, and recovery if the transplant center is a distance from your home. Once I completed testing and understood the risks, the rest I kind of left up to fate, and I just had the attitude, if I'm healthy enough to do it, I'm meant to do it. I didn't have to wait very long for the answer. After about 3 months, I received news that I was cleared to donate, and I had a transplant day on the calendar, which ironically enough, they scheduled around one of my son's football games. So, that's pretty funny in my book now that I've been through it, that they would schedule surgery around kind of such a frivolous event, but it wasn't frivolous to me at the time. So my preparation for donation, what was my next step for preparation? There were so many things to consider. What arrangements should I make at work? How much time should I take off? What do my husband and son need to prepare for running the house on their own? How do I prepare my son for the surgery itself? As I said, he was less than enthusiastic about me donating. My mom helped us out there. My son was a high school senior, and I wasn't going to leave him in an empty house for a week. I remember being a teenager, and there was no way I was going to leave him unattended in a house his senior year. So my mom stepped up to the plate on that. As for preparing myself emotionally, I reassured myself that everything would be fine given the number of tests and research that I had done. Steve?
Now let's talk about preparing for the transplant. Remember, the transplant process is a marathon, not a sprint. I've said that before and I'll say it many more times, but you have to be prepared to receive multiple calls before an acceptable match is found. It's not uncommon to find out at the very last minute that there's a problem preventing the match from being completed. But when the right donor is found, it's time to prepare for transplant day. I stayed transplant ready for both of my procedures by sticking to a healthy diet and being as active as I could be. But that was a lot easier in the 90s than it was for my second round of dialysis. After 3 years of dialysis from 2020 to 2023, I'd lost a lot of muscle mass. Getting around had become difficult. I walked as much as possible, and my wife used to drag me around even though I didn't want to walk. And my buddies would load my gear and take me out for fishing trips. And that was very emasculating. You know, I've always been a kind of a manly man and do my own thing. So it was tough to do that, but my guys always stressed for me it wasn't a problem. But the mental side of things was always easy for me. I'm a fighter. And I, just try to stay positive no matter what. And Kathy, my wife, keeps me motivated. I just kept the faith, and eventually I did get that kidney. Now, the transplant experience, the actual surgery for the kidney recipient can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. It requires you to be under general anesthesia. The surgeon makes an incision on the lower left or right abdomen and places the new kidney into the belly. This is not where the kidneys are located naturally, but placing the new kidney there is the easiest way to connect to important blood vessels and the bladder. Typically, the non-working kidneys are not removed. They're left in the body and typically just shrink over time. Serious complications may occur during or immediately after the transplant surgery. Some of the serious risks include bleeding or blood clots, infection, heart attack, or even a stroke. After transplant, kidney recipients will need to take anti-rejection medication for the rest of their lives to prevent their bodies from rejecting that new kidney. A transplant experience. My first transplant occurred on January 13th, 1999, with many people to support us. For me, transplant day was filled with apprehension, concern, and hope. My brother had been a track star and football coach in college, and I played basketball and boxed. We went to a small Catholic elementary school, and I continued on to a Catholic high school and then to a Catholic college. And I always kept in touch with that community, which was ready to cheer us on once again. Our wives, transplant coordinator, and many family and friends were present. The surgery took about 4 or 5 hours. I had my second transplant September 29th, 2023. I showed up the night before to finish one last round of dialysis before the transplant procedure. My wife was with me, of course, and so were many of our friends and families from the transplant community and colleagues. The procedure went very well, and I was discharged for home recovery 7 days after the operation. But each person's experience might be a little different, so be prepared for that.
So
Bobby?
the donation experience, my transplant occurred on September 19th, 2017. So it's going to be 8 years. And I always like looking at the pictures that they put on this because this picture that is on is I was in recovery probably an hour after surgery. So, I had to send a snapshot to all my friends at home, letting them know that I came through surgery with no problems. But when you're preparing for your transplant day, it's nice to have an idea of what the transplant day can potentially look like. Here's what it looked like for me. It occurred on September 19th of 2017. My family all rallied around me to help me through the process of recovery and healing. For me, the transplantation process was pretty remarkable. To see all the various people in my life and people that I didn't even know who came together for this process to change another person's life was a beautiful experience. I was able to not only have my husband by my side and have my recipient in the room right next to me in recovery and in the hospital, but I also got to meet her three grown children, one of whom climbed into bed with me and cried and thanked me for donating to his mother. So talk about a moving experience. The surgery itself took about 2 hours. Afterward, the recovery process was manageable for me. I was in the hospital for about 2 days and then discharged to a hotel adjacent to the hospital. I went for my final check at the clinic 3 days after my transplant and had high hopes of getting home in time to see my son's football game. As I said, they had scheduled the surgery around my son's football game. He was a senior in high school and going off to play college ball, so I didn't want to miss any of those games. But it didn't quite happen like that. The flight home was uncomfortable. The ride home was even more uncomfortable from the airport, especially walking around the airport. And pain medication just doesn't agree with me. So I was only on Tylenol from the second night in the hospital on to that point. Steve?
Okay, let's talk about my recovery. As you can see in the photos that they put there, the one up on the left is a friend of mine who had come to visit a long time. Here, I've known her since we were in elementary school. She stopped by to visit. And then there was me on my first trek outside, walking down the driveway. And my wife likes to take a lot of pictures, like Bobby said. That's not the one I'd have preferred to have her take, but that's the one that we were using. So after kidney transplant, the new organ may begin to function almost immediately. Some people may have experienced delayed graft function, which is DGF, which means that the new kidney doesn't work adequately right after surgery. The majority of these kidneys do begin to function. These patients may have to be on dialysis until the newly transplanted kidney actually starts working. Recovery went well for me overall after my first transplant, but I did experience one severe complication. I had a leak in my ureter. It wasn't easy, but we addressed it and I recovered well afterwards. The recovery process after my second transplant was also smooth, but I was also older and I spent 3 years on dialysis, so it took a bit longer. It was about 2 months before I'd say I was really feeling like I was fully recovered. I got there bit by bit, running errands and taking walks with Kathy, even if that meant using the grocery store to get my steps in. I'm slowly regaining my muscle mass. And like I said, slowly, but I've got plenty of time. Please keep in mind that these are my experiences and yours may be different. It's important to work with your healthcare team to gain a complete understanding of any medical procedures before making treatment decisions. Bobby?
So what is the recovery like for the donor post-op? You can see the average donor recovery process on this slide, but individual experiences may vary. Let me tell you a little bit about my recovery. I moved very slowly at home for the first 3 days, but I started to feel pretty good at about day 5. After about a week, I really felt excellent. In fact, we went furniture shopping and I forgot and I kind of jogged through a parking lot and remembered quite quickly why I wasn't supposed to be active. Lifting was still off limits for another 2 weeks. Then around week 4, I was cleared for activity as usual. I took extra time from work. I took 2 weeks off because I had the time built up, but I could have gone back to work earlier had I chosen because I have a fairly sedentary job. So, what does life look like today for us? Everyone's experience will be different, of course, but I'd like to share a few things about my life after donation. In the 7 years since I donated a kidney, my husband and I have celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. My then high school student is now a college graduate and has become an airline pilot flying out of Reagan International Airport. My husband and I have found a new leisure activity that we enjoy, sweeping the country, pickleball, and I try to play about 4 times a week on top of all of the other activities that I do. I attended my recipient's daughter's wedding with my entire family, and we recently spent 2 weeks in her native home of Thailand, which was quite a remarkable experience. And she very much reminds me of my mom. I don't think I've said that previously, but after spending 2 weeks with her, she definitely reminds me of my mom. Time continues to march on since my donation, and things change as they always do in life, but one thing hasn't changed, and that's my passion for spreading the word about living donations and the remarkable benefits that a living donor can get from giving the gift of life.
All right,
Steve?
my life today. Today I'm doing well and feeling great. My weight is down in a healthy way, and so far, the biggest problem I have is buying new wardrobe because all my old clothes are just too big. I have blood clot work. I'm sorry, I have blood work, not blood clot. I have blood work done now once every 2 months, and I go to the clinic once every 3 months for overall analysis. My numbers are great, and I'm back to enjoying my life in retirement. My wife's also retiring soon, and we look forward to just visiting the grandkids and watching them grow. And when I'm done doing that, when I'm not doing that, I'm out fishing. That's the one thing I like to do. I gave up my Harley motorcycle with this second transplant because I didn't want to jeopardize if I happen to get a new kidney. The most important thing for those still on the wait list is positivity and patience. That may sound easy at first, but it can be difficult over time. When you come in for dialysis and talk to the transplant team, they're all positive, and that positivity is infectious. And then 1 month goes by, 2 months go by, three, four, you start to get a little disillusioned. That's why you have to surround yourself with positive people and keep your focus on life after transplant. Network with other people in the transplant community and learn from their experiences. They know where you are and they know what's possible. I've had 2 transplants and over 4 years of dialysis, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I'm here to say that there's always hope. Bobby?
So let's do a little recap of today's talk. We've covered a lot. So we'd like to recap some of the important messages that I hope you'll take away from this. Educate yourself about your transplant options. Attending this talk is a good start. You can also find lots of information on the Kidney Transplant Connectors website. Actively engage with your transplant team, start the screening process, and remember that you're not alone. Reach out to your family, friends, and support groups. This can help you get through the tough emotional times and may even help you find a donor. Finally, I know Steve said this, but we can't stress it enough. Stay transplant ready. You want to be in the best possible health because you never know when you'll get the call that you're having transplant day. Well, that was a tough one to get out. Steve.
Okay, I want to thank you guys for listening to us today. I would like to say one other thing. I've said it before, but just remember this whole procedure is a marathon, not a sprint. As Bobby said, she was feeling pretty good. She kind of pushed a little bit and got knocked back a little bit. And I have to admit, I felt like that too when I went home after the first and second transplant. I said, I'm feeling pretty good. You move around a little too much, boy, and it'll let you realize you got to get back down there. But anyway, I hope hearing about our experiences has helped prepare you for the kidney transplant or just the donation journey. Please remember that we are here as peers, not as healthcare providers. If you have any medical questions, we ask you again to direct them to your healthcare team the next time you speak with them.
Finally, the experiences Steve and I shared are our own, and you or other experiences may have different experiences. If you have any medical questions, please save those for your healthcare team, but know that we are wishing you the very best on your journey. We're in your corner and happy to answer any questions you may have about our experience. Steve and I are pretty much open books when it comes to our donation and his, receipt of a kidney. So, there's no silly questions. There's no questions that are too personal. The only thing, and Steve had mentioned is please, if they're medically oriented, please save those for your healthcare team. But if you have any questions about our personal experiences, please let us know.
Guys, that was wonderful. Bobby, Steve, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Guys,
us.
absolutely. Absolutely. Team, let's open it up. What questions or thoughts do you have for Bobby or for Steve? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and we can just have a little bit of an open discussion.
Nobody has any questions? Everybody's still muted. Unmute yourself if you got a question. Okay,
Well,
I'll
how
start
about
it off.
this?
I'll start
Yes.
it off. Let me say,
Go.
well, Steve, Steve, now that you're not riding your Harley anymore, all you do, you can't fish in the winter. So what do you do in the wintertime? Well, my wife has drags me around the neighborhood. Now we're kind of like old people in the neighborhood. I think a lot of people we didn't even know that lived there. Now they see us walking around, and so that's kind of been kind of cool. Kind of cool because we're kind of, you know, quiet people and kind of stay to ourselves. Well, we found some neighbors that have been, we've been in this house 26 years, and we found some people that have been here 27, 38. One guy built his home. So that's been kind of cool, something to do.
I can
I'm
attest
not
to
going to
that
help you
because
guys
I'll
out
get
anymore.
random texts from Steve with pictures of him and his wife bundled up going out to get their steps, I think is usually the caption
No,
that I
she,
received in the
no,
text
no, no,
message.
no. No, I have to tell you, my wife sends her those pictures. I won't send pictures of me walking. I don't do it.
I have a question, Steve.
Good.
Okay. I know that you're back, and I'm glad to see you're doing very well. What percentage of do you think you're back? I mean, are you at 80% of what you used to be, or 90, 95?
Let's see. Let me just tell you this, Gilbert. When I started the second transplant, I had my first kidney for like 22, 23 years. Okay. I was riding my Harley. I was back to normal. And this time, like I said, because I'm older, it's been a little bit different. But from the time when I'll tell you, when I sold my Harley and I knew that I needed a new kidney and I wasn't going to jeopardize it in any way if I got a new kidney, I would say right now, I'm probably about 85% of what I was then.
Okay. Well, that's really good. I mean, 85 is,
Yes, it is. Yes.
yeah. And what I'm glad to,
Amazing.
I can tell you, I knew Steve, prior to, when he had his first kidney and then when he was on dialysis. Steve and I have been paired up for 6 years now, I think, 5 or 6 years. So we've known each other for an extended period of time. And the Steve that I see before me probably looks 10 years younger than the Steve that I started out with 5 years ago. I don't know how that happens because certainly, I don't look 10 years younger than I did when I donated. But it's a testament to Steve, kind of working hard and getting through it and regaining his strength and kind of staying the course through the second donation because it was tough for him with COVID. It was frustrating, probably to say the least.
And you know what? You guys, Bobby hit the nail right on the head. The support I had from our Sanofi people was awesome. The support I had from my friends and neighbors was awesome. There was no negativity at all. You get people occasionally ask you a question where you kind of think, why would you ask that? But they're asking the question because they want to know. And so I would tell them one of the biggest questions was, I'll show you my fistula. That thing is horrific. Okay. But I had to have it and it kept me alive. And so now I kind of wear, as you can say, shirts when they're short sleeve. They come down to my elbow just because I don't like to freak people out, But other than that, I get along, and a lot of people don't even know that I had one kidney transplant, much less two.
Steve, I have a question for you. Since we
Okay.
haven't really talked since you had the second one in 2023,
Mhm.
you mentioned that you were more willing to consider an underutilized kidney, as we call it, and that
Yes.
a lot of those are from patients who have had hepatitis C. I think you mentioned that. And I
Yes.
don't know if a lot of people realize this, but that was unfortunately, from the opioid epidemic. People, it was awful, really. But I was just curious, Steve, did you have to receive treatment after did you receive the Hep C kidney? Did you receive treatment afterwards?
Yes, Jerry, good question. Um, Really good question because I asked that, what's going to be the follow-up when I get this kidney? Because when you get the kidney, it's still a Hep C, it's still hepatitis C, but it's, under control. After I had it was kind of weird because after I had the transplant, they told me that my insurance would not cover the hepatitis C drug until it showed up in my system. Okay. And that was kind of weird because I'm like, well, I thought, the hep C would never show up. But anyway, it took only about 3 days. And I
Mhm.
remember my nephrologist called me. She said, I got great news. She said, it showed up in your system. I had to take one little pill. It was a little pill, one pill a day for 90 days. And they said after that, it should clear up and everything. But once we got to about 65 days, she called me and she said, it's not showing up in your system, but we have to continue to cycle up for the 90 days. And after the 91st day, I got a nice letter from the hospital saying, "Hey, you're hepatitis C free. The only thing you can't do is donate blood. You're good to go with everything else." Okay, so yeah, just Jared, just a pill, little pill for 90 days, and only thing I can't do is
Amazing.
just donate blood. Yeah.
Wow. And those get one more comment. Those are typically really good kidneys because unfortunately they do come from younger people.
Yes. Yes. Most
And
definitely. Yep.
yeah, so it's a
And I
safe.
wouldn't have. And to be honest, I probably, like I said, I'm very honest. I don't know where I would have been on the wait list, being 71. I'll be 72 next month. And it's amazing to even say that
You
to
look
me, that I'm 72. It's like,
Looking
wow.
young, man.
But
Looking young.
thank you, man. Appreciate that. But remember, that's why you guys, I would like you to, if you're waiting and you're a little bit older, like I said, when they told me I was gonna have to go on the wait list, I told my wife I have no problem with this because I got my first transplant when I was like 44, you know, um, and I think I got it like 45 or something, but I said I got to see all of my grandkids grown. I mean, born. I only saw my granddaughter, who's my heart. They were in Italy when she was born because my son-in-law played pro basketball in Europe. But my three grandsons, I was there when they were born, and they know me by as Papa from seeing me and talking to me, not from pictures or videos and everything. They actually know me and they call me, and I'd have missed out on that if I wouldn't be able to get a. So I would prefer if I couldn't get a kidney, I'd love for somebody in their 40s to be able to get one so they can enjoy the time that I have. But that's not necessarily true now because now you can. I'm living proof. You can get that Hep C kidney, and hey, I'm rolling.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, but let me ask a question about for Bobby.
I
Bobby
don't know,
donated.
Steve.
Wait a minute.
I wasn't in
I
this for
gotta
you to
say
ask
that
me questions.
I'm gonna get everybody fired up because you heard Bobby say she donated to a kidney. I think her kidney to a stranger, and I
Mhm.
think in our group we have Bobby's the only one that donated to a stranger. Now we have a couple of girls that they were part of that paired, but I mean she straight up went to, and I think it's amazing. I'm so proud of her for doing that, and all these years having known her and her family and how tight they are and how her first decision to do it wasn't easy. They gave her a hard time about that, but
Mhm.
I'll leave it alone. You guys go ahead, ask
Well,
questions for Bobby.
I say I donated a kidney, but I did gain an extended family because now my recipient and her husband and all her children, they'll call me on Christmas and we get together and we FaceTime. And so, I've gotten back so much in giving the gift of life. I've probably received tenfold back what I've given. So, it's been an amazing experience. And I told Steve all the time when he was sick, and it was kind of the running joke that 1 in 4 people would give a kidney if they were asked to donate, and what they said 90% would do it again. And I told Steve that if I had 3 kidneys, I'd definitely give him one, but I couldn't give him my only kidney I had left. So, for me, the process was a really fantastic, wonderful process in my life. So, I like to spread the word about it simply because it's been life changing for me, and it's been a wonderful life experience for me.
It's amazing, Bobby. That actually, Steve queued up a question that I had for you because you did talk about, how in the beginning, your teenage son in particular, which, teens make life interesting all on its own. And then to have him kind of, challenge that or take time for it to come around. How did you, work with your son and your family to help them understand that call that you felt and that need to want to give the donation?
Yeah, so it was a little tough for my family too because all of my team, I live in Massachusetts and my transplant actually took place in Washington, D.C. So they weren't privy to go to any of the appointments where a lot of the actual process was explained. So they were getting information. I brought pamphlets home and they could read them and they were getting information that I was giving them. Um, but at the end of the day, I basically said, listen, this is a process that is so stringent that for a moment, if they think the donor is in harm's way, they'll just not let you donate. I mean, it's that simple. The donor has nothing to gain and everything to lose. Even if you think like plastic surgery, right? You go under plastic surgery, but if you're the one that's getting the plastic surgery, you probably get something out of it. In this case, you're having a major surgery and you really have nothing to gain from it. So I reassured them that the process was stringent enough that if I got through it cleared medically, that I would be safe and that I wouldn't do anything to put our family in harm's way, right? Because putting myself in harm's way would be putting my family in harm's way. I'm kind of the center of the family. I'm the mom. I keep everything running. So, they trusted me enough. They understood it. And, with time and maturity, my son's now 24. He gets it. He understands what I did. But the teenage boy that was probably a little afraid that his mom might not be okay couldn't understand it. So it was just really a process of letting them know that this is a process that's stringent for a reason. And if I make it through the process, then I'll be just fine. And I really firmly believe that, and I really, firmly believe it for most living donors that the process is set up to be difficult for a reason, and that's to make sure that you're okay to be the donor.
For sure, Bobby. Thank you. Guys, what other questions do we have for our fantastic speakers, Bobby and Steve?
I have for Steve. Hey,
Yes.
Steve, the first 12 months, do you have any complication?
The first one or the second or both?
The second.
The second one, no complications. The second one, it was just that I'd been on dialysis for 3 years, and so my body had just started wearing down on me. The process of healing, um, as far as the transplant,
Yeah.
there was no problem. I had none at all. It's just like I said, and I'm still doing it now. Like that today, I started to go off, and I was going to go for a walk, and I went 2 blocks, and I had to turn around and come back. It's just the way it is. But I'm not going to push it. If I'm not feeling right, I'll come back because there's always tomorrow. I can go start off. And then like anytime now, in about an hour, my wife will be here, and I don't know if I'm going to tell her I walked or not because she's going to want to drag me out if I say I did.
I'm going to tell her you didn't, so you better tell her the truth.
But no, man, to be honest, I'm trying to think. So I'm honest with you. This second time, our main concern was that Hep C, and once they said that I was cleared with that, I felt good. I mean, and I just like I said, I'm really looking forward, as Joey knows. I'm looking forward, and Bobby too. I'm looking forward to. My boys already been ragging me about they're not going to carry my stuff for me anymore. We're going fishing, and I'm on my own, and they're giving me a hard time. So I'm ready. I'm ready to get after it. But no, man, I don't think there's been anything that I will call was anything that I can think of that I would say, yeah, it was a tough time. No, it really wasn't. It was smoother, I think, than the first time. Probably because I knew what I was up against. I mean, when you don't know what's happening, you're kind of like in loss. But I like to refer to it as I say, the first time I was I just rode on the train. This time
Right.
I was a conductor. I led it the way, and I knew
Very
the questions
blessed.
to ask. And
You're real
you
blessed.
said that again?
I said you're
Oh,
real
no question
blessed.
about it, man. Yes, sir. I'm blessed 10 times over. I'm glad to be here too.
Wow. You sound good, like a lot of energy, positive.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yes, sir. That's what you have to do too, man. Stay positive and try to keep energy. And when you're down, find a good movie that you like to watch. I never was a series guy on movies, TV shows and stuff, but I found myself watching series just because it'd keep me going. I used to like little short things. Just real quick, and I won't say anything else, but one of my things I did at dialysis was I watched this syndicated show. It was
uh-huh.
called Little House on the Prairie. And I never watched Little House on the Prairie, had no need to watch it. but it came on every day at about 9 o'clock, and I knew I was getting off dialysis at 10. Okay, so I started watching it, and then I'd come home and boy, I don't know if any of you watched Little House on the Prairie
Yeah.
yet, but that Mrs. Olson drove me batty. I would come home and my wife would say, "You have to stop watching that," because she's just too much. But it's just little things that you find out trying to do that kind of make the days go by faster. And you'll find something, but you got to lock in on something that's positive. Even though Miss Olson was negative, it was positive because I even started watching the show when I was on my off days of dialysis.
It's funny
Crazy.
you mention Mrs. Olson because I grew up watching that. And
Oh,
even as a small child, I mean, I personally think they had really good life lessons for, kids back then.
they did.
And I remember, like, in life, I was able to spot the Mrs. Olsons. So rather than getting, like, really upset with them or whatever, in my head, I was like, okay, that's a Mrs. Olson. So I kind of had
Yes.
the idea that, she was always, like, sticking her nose in where it didn't need to be
Oh my
and those
God.
kinds of things. So it's just too funny to hear you mention Mrs. Olson because I have not told that to anyone in my entire life. And I'm now on my way to 55. And it's just so funny that you brought it up. And I'm like, oh my God, Mrs. Olson. And that was the character on there that really stood out.
Mhm.
She was.
But
She
I
was
want to
something
mention something else
else.
to you. I want to mention something else
Okay.
to you, Steve. I am actually another thing that happened on Little House on the Prairie that I never wanted to happen to me was when I forget the oldest daughter's name, and I don't know if you've seen this part, but she ends up going blind. Fortunately for her, it's
Yes.
temporary. But right now, I am
Hmm.
legally blind, and that's because I had diabetes at the age of 4, and that's what caused my kidney issue as well. But
Hmm.
I am legally blind right now. A surgery in a couple of weeks that hopefully will clear my vision, but I would never have guessed your age. To listen to you, you do not sound like you're in your 70s. So you're doing a great job of staying motivated and active.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
attribute that a lot to the fact that I was a biker. I'm still a biker at heart. Even the pictures that my wife sent to Bobby of us walking, I had one of my Harley leathers on. I'll never give them up. And she's asking me, "Well, you don't have a bike anymore. Are you going to give them up?" No, no, I won't give them up. No, no, no. But no, I've always been active and, like I said, a positive person. So, Michelle, if you stay active and keep being a positive person, hey, there's nothing that can keep you back. You just keep going
Yep.
what you're doing, okay? And we'll all
Yep.
pray for you
That's what I
too.
do every day. I get when I'm feeling really tired and stuff, I'm like, okay, it's time to get on the treadmill. You got to walk.
There
So
you
that's
go.
what I do.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Simone. Thank you both so much for your presentation. They were awesome. I smiled also about the Little House on the Prairie. I read the entire series. I grew up on that. So I know
Okay.
about Laura. And the name of the one that went blind, Michelle, is Mary. Mary is the
Oh,
oldest
Yes,
daughter.
she's
I
the
know it
oldest.
that well.
Yep.
I
Mhm.
know it that
yep.
well. But thank you
Yeah.
both. I didn't have any questions pertaining to the kidney, but I am a double lung transplant recipient going into
Uh-huh.
5 years. So I
Wow.
feel everything that you all said. Staying positive, mental strength is very, very important. That's usually half the
Yes.
battle of any type of
Yes.
sickness, but especially something this major. Your mental strength is what will carry you over. Being that positive and being around positive people, being in that positive space and being able to shift your mind to when things start to feel dark or seem dark, being able to shift your mind. I love television, so usually I would grab a good comedy or something if anything comes up
Yep.
that, I want to shift my focus or my thoughts. That's what I would definitely do. But I always tell people mental strength. You have to do it. Mind over matter seems hard and it's not easy, but you have to practice doing that because you can't let yourself get in that dark place and stay. So thank you both
That's
very
right.
much for your experiences.
Thank you, Simone. That you hit the nail right on the head as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Bobby for being a donor. If it wasn't for donors, I wouldn't be talking to you. That I do know. I had
That's
8
right.
to go before Miami Jackson called me for a liver. I really appreciate all the donors. And just to be
Yes.
that it's no words.
Mm.
I can talk forever, but it's no words for it.
Thank you. It's been life-changing for me. In all honesty, to be a living donor has been life-changing. So that's why Steve and I do what we do, because we're both very passionate about it. It's a wonderful experience to be a living donor.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
And Bobby, I mean, Steve, you keep it up, man. You're doing good. You really look good. And you talk. You tell you, man, you're like beyond miracle.
Man, you just make sure that Melissa has your number so I can put that check in the mail. I appreciate that.
All right.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, I'm looking. You're living. I'm looking.
There you go. Right on.
Any other questions, any other thoughts before we start to wrap up here? It's been such a good group, lots of great energy to match the fantastic energy coming from Bobby and from Steve. So some good stuff here. John, do you want to say a few words before we start to wrap this thing up as a two-time kidney recipient yourself?
Unmute yourself.
Got it.
There you go.
Yes, I had my first transplant in 1986. It lasted almost 29 years. And I'm back on that. Well, I was on dialysis for about 8 years before, the day after I graduated high school. And was on dialysis another 4 years. And I got my second kidney. And I was also Hep C. And I took a Hep C kidney. Then a couple of months, I was on Harvoni for probably about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and everything cleared up. So I've been helping a lot of patients. Melissa keeps me busy. So I work with all the social workers at all the transplant centers. So, and they contact me when someone needs help. So, but keep going. Says stay positive and keep them busy. They're doing very good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways for tonight, right? I think Simone said it beautifully that mental strength and fitness, keeping the faith, as Steve said. You know, Bobby speaks of this gift that if she could do it again, she would do it in a heartbeat. I mean, it's such a miracle. There are many hands that make this possible, organ donation and transplantation. But it's such a gift, and it's a gift worth giving and perpetuating. So glad to have each of you on the call tonight. I want to give a nod of thanks again, lots of love to our speakers, Bobby and Steve. So yes, thank you so much for this incredible presentation. A nod, of course, to Jerry and Sanofi or Sanofi. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on it.
I'm
Doesn't
still working
matter.
on it, Melissa, and it's been 6 years. It's okay.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, as a special nod, so I had some different notes here throughout. So if you're interested in our monthly support group, or if you're interested in learning more about our Build-A-Bear pediatric event on April 6th, please send a note over to John with his email there, venise40@comcast.net. Those are free offerings. And then also for our run walk, which is April 26th, Sanofi, whew, goodness gracious. They are also going to be with us there. And so kind of in honor of tonight from now through Sunday, if you type in Sanofi 15 on our site, you'll get 15% off of registration. So I will also put that in the chat as well so that you've got that too. And again, if you have any last notes or thoughts for Bobby and Steve, otherwise we're going to go ahead and close things out here.